Trump is going back to Butler, Pennsylvania, and today I'm going to tell you some of the changes that they're going to make from the first time, which obviously was a disaster, to this new return for Trump back to this part of the country. And of course, I want to go through some of these things. I want to talk about some of the new threats that Trump is facing now, but I also want to look at one key thing that I believe everybody involved with the security tomorrow really needs to pay attention to. But of course, I want to hear your opinion too. If you think there's something more important that when I mention here, or if you think there's other like security details just from all the stuff we've heard over the past few months that you think is a total disaster, or you think needs to be ramped up, let me know what you think down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. Let's go and get into it. So how are they going to protect Trump this time around? Well, let's talk about personnel. So even President Biden has said that more resources need to be appointed to Trump. So he's going to have more resources, including counter sniper teams, hopefully more than just the 2 Secret Service counter sniper teams than we got the first time. You're, of course, going to have DHS. You're going to have TSA working the magnetometers. You're going to have local law enforcement there as well. Whether they have counter snipers or not, I'm not too sure. I'm almost sure that they will this time for sure. They had them the first time. But of course, they're going to have a lot more personnel around Trump watching the perimeter. The perimeter is already being set and it's already locked down as far as I know. It was actually locked down earlier this week in preparation from this event. That's what one of the vendors said. So very different than what you seen the first time, where of course the shooter the first time was able to walk in and, you know, fly his drone around 45 minutes before the event and all of that kind of stuff. He was able to scope it out, what, a week before the event as well. So this time they've got it locked down in advance of Trump and rally goers that are going to be there. So that's a positive thing. They're also bringing shipping containers. So imagine you have the perimeter, right? And I don't know what this is exactly going to look like, but they want to eliminate lines of sight. When we look at this specific site, which is going to be the same exact site, by the way, but when you look at it, there's a lot of opportunities for line of sight. So they're going to be blocking those with shipping containers. So that's another thing that they are going to do. It's somebody compared it to like a fortress almost. But unfortunately, that's what you need to do at a site like this. And hell, if you got to put some shipping containers out there, do it. I say do it. So I think that will be another good measure. And then, of course, they're going to have counter drone technology, and they're also going to have their own drones. But I'm going to take a guess and say that the perimeter will be much bigger this time. Now, I do know that the AGR building is going to be completely roped off. Okay, so nobody's going to be able to get around that site. What I do hope, and I haven't read anything on this either, but what I'm hoping is that there's going to be counter sniper teams along that AGR building. I know they've already talked to the owners of the AGR building, right? And so I'm hoping they'll be on those roofs. Another area they really need to have people this time around is the water tower. Eliminate any kind of second shooter theory and just put people up there, right? Make it loud and proud to know, hey, we're up here, you know? So nobody knows that, nobody gets an advantage on the people that are on the ground, right? That's one thing you have to eliminate this time around, or at any site really where it's open like this. You need all the advantage you can get, and so they need to take full advantage of that water tower. They don't have to go all the way to the top, but there's plenty of walking space around there. Another thing they need to utilize this time around is dogs, right? Just have dogs walk the lines, right? And, you know, you don't have to necessarily invade people's personal space. You don't have to treat them like criminals before they even do anything. But with dogs, you know, obviously they have amazing noses and amazing abilities to sniff things out. So utilize them, right? The parking lot, wherever that's going to be. Make sure that, you know, bomb sniffing dogs, all of that kind of stuff really needs to be utilize as much as you possibly can, because like we've seen before, just a few simple mistakes can have a tragic outcome. And then the bulletproof glass, right? So we've seen Trump behind bulletproof glass now anytime he does an outdoor event. because unfortunately you're just not going to be able to block every single possible angle, right? And you may have a bunch of shipping containers, you may have counter drone technology, but at the end of the day, bulletproof glass works, okay? Another thing that I really think they need to do, if they haven't done it already, which again, these are a lot of assumptions because I haven't heard every single detail. They're not going to release every detail, to be quite honest with you, and I understand that. But they need to be talking to the neighbors in the area. You know, you choose the spot, so you got to understand that there's going to be multiple people around there that live in that area. I would just let them know, hey, just so you know, we're going to be here, and there's going to be a lot of presence, expect traffic delays, and all that kind of stuff. If you run into somebody that you think is a little suspect, that doesn't mean you break into their house and say, hey, we're going to take your guns for this entire event, but you let your other people know that, hey, this guy seemed a little sketch to me. We just need to keep an eye on that specific place, right? Sometimes you do have to preemptively judge some people, and that doesn't mean that they're bad. That just means that sometimes you got to take a little bit more precaution with some people that you encounter. Again, I'm not saying that they need to kick these people out of their homes for the event or break down their doors or preemptively take their freaking guns. I'm not condoning any of that kind of stuff. I would just at least talk to them and let them know that you're going to be there. But here's the most important thing, and one area that I believe was the biggest letdown, the biggest failure out of the entire Trump assassination plot in Butler, Pennsylvania. And that's communication. The most simplest of things that you can utilize to be able to tell, hey, there's a threat here. All right. So sending pictures and all of that is great. But when you have a command post that is broken, right, and you don't have every single or representative of every single agency in the same spot that can share information, that was a huge letdown. The fact they didn't have walkie-talkies, the fact they weren't using FirstNet, which is an amazing system in place for law enforcement that keeps traffic clear. They're expecting 25 to 30,000 people, right? So cell service is going to be, it's going to be spotty, right? Sometimes when you get a lot of people in an area like that. This is a relatively small place, so you want to have every communication asset available to you. So we know that they're going to have representatives from hopefully Secret Service to local, hopefully DHS, TSA, anybody that is out there that's doing an event. Hey, you see somebody, TSA, catches a gun in a bag. Hey, just want to let y'all know we found a gun in a bag. Suspect's been apprehended, whatever, but you need to be able to communicate that, because one of my biggest fears is that they catch somebody like that is willing to be a deterrent, right? Or they're willing to kind of be the guinea pig, and then the real threat, you kind of take attention away from what the real threat actually is. So securing the site is one thing, and I think they're going to do that pretty well. I think trying to pull something off here, even though I know a lot of people would like to, because he's in a high threat status, right? Or high threat environment is what they like to call it. Either way, I think people would like to take advantage of this Butler rally, but I think it's going to be very safe. The expectations for it to be safe are just too high, right? So that I don't worry about as much. The motorcade route I worry about, because again, having counter surveillance and drones and all that at the site, feasible. Having them all the way from wherever the motorcade, from Trump Force One, is playing, to the site, I don't know. Can you do that? Maybe. Well, I mean, they got all kinds of technology they can use. Will they do that? That's the question. I don't know. So I do worry about him getting there and the potential for threats along the route. I've also talked about his plane a couple of times, right? He had a malfunction a couple months ago, and they said it was just a standard type of failure. They were able to get safely on the ground. But I do worry somebody could get close enough to his plane to mess around with it, or potentially cause some kind of catastrophic failure inside of the plane, right? We've heard of threats of poisoning, right? If somebody gets close enough to him, that's paid, right? We saw this with the Iranian plot, right? Where the guy was, paying people to, take care of Trump, right? He thought he was hiring these hitmen. Fortunately, they were undercovers. We've seen two guys, two regular looking losers essentially, try to take shots or try to take the president out. The Iranians haven't got that close, but I worry more about them at this point, just because they are so adamant about getting Trump. And again, we don't know how many people are here that could be working for them, right? And then funneling money to one of these lunatics that's willing to risk it all. So I think overall the site will be safe. The only way I see anybody ever being able to do anything is causing some kind of diversion, right? That takes all the focus to this one area and the threat coming from another direction or two other directions. Remember, each time we've seen this, it's been one guy, right? It was all in that one guy. But if you have multiple people, I mean real credible threats of multiple people trying to take out the same person, in this case President Trump, it could actually be successful. So diversions and having multiple people, that's, again, you know, something you got to watch out for. I think that's my biggest concern. That's where I'm at with it, man. I hope that everybody is safe tomorrow. I hope none of this, you know, kind of scenarios play out in any kind of way. But again, you got to be prepared for that. And so hopefully they've learned a huge lesson. Obviously, I don't have much trust in the Secret Service as far as the upper level people. Still, I don't think enough people have been held accountable. And holding their feet to the fire is going to help, right? There's a lot of eyeballs on them. But I just kind of concerned that some of the same mistakes may still present themselves, or new measures that they really haven't thought of yet. I don't know though, so that's kind of where we're at. All I know is that they got to be on their P's and Q's in order to make sure that Trump and the people that go to his rallies are safe and sound. So there you go. That is my opinion, but I'd love to hear yours. If there's any other threats that I didn't mention here that you think are even more credible than what I said, let me know down below. If you disagree with my thoughts altogether, let me know what you think. Big thanks to you guys. See you in the next one. And as always, hold them down.